Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Russians say that they've entered Toretsk, and indeed, physically they entered the border of the city, but it was the last entrance for this particular group of the Russian soldiers. They've decided to strike Toretsk today, this early morning. But as we may judge on this FPV drone camera footage, the attack wasn't that successful for the Russian army. And this is the same convoy filmed later on surveillance drone. As you may see, the distance between those armored vehicles or tanks is kind of close, so Russia keeps that short distance always in their convoys. I already saw tons of those drone videos, so at first they sent around 5 vehicles close together, then a big gap and next 5 vehicles, for example, or next 2 vehicles. The Ukrainian military command had understood a long time ago that it's better not to use convoys in attacks. As it happened, for example, the last summer, then Ukraine attacked the southern direction, and there Ukraine also had tremendous losses in armored vehicles. But Russia, no, they just send and send those vehicles, they just send and send their soldiers, they just see the goal and they don't see any other obstacles. For them the cost of life is really nothing, it was nothing. And they also send convoys of their soldiers. For example, this one was also filmed on the eastern direction. I counted like 23 soldiers out there, and it's not the full convoy that was moving in attack. And just 10 minutes, kaboom, and those convoys just ambushed. Ukraine used FPV drones for strikes and also cluster munition artillery. Guys, I cannot share that video on this channel, sorry, but I post everything on the Telegram group. It's not that terrific or something because it was filmed from the very long distance, but still, for this platform, it's no go. And what I cannot understand that the Russian military command knows that Ukraine constantly monitors all of the parts of the front lines, but they ordered their soldiers to go straight forward with no any backup, with no any armor, with the poor supplies, as the Russian soldiers usually complain. So definitely it is the classical meat grinder which you may find in any period of the history of the Russian army, but this time I think even for Russia it's too much. Also recently tons of the videos were published about Russians ambushed on their boats. They tried to port the islands in the Dnieper River of the Kherson Oblast, but judging on those videos they really can succeed in it, and they do it during the daytime. Wow. Well, during the nighttime it's also difficult for the Russian soldiers themselves, and Ukraine also has the drones with thermal cameras, lots of those. Sorry guys, I had to censor the screenshot, so there were 3 of the army men inside the boat and all of them just gone somehow. My friends, if you like the job that I do daily on this YouTube channel, you may also consider supporting me on Patreon. The link for my Patreon page is available in the video description just below. Thank you so much for your motivation. So those particular soldiers were arrested by the Russian army itself. They're kept in custody somewhere in the basement of some of the building near the front lines. Why? Well, basically because they started complaining a lot about the poor supplies of the Russian army, because they're in lack of the medical treatment, and because Russia sends them for the straightforward mid-wave attacks. So this guy says that commander tells him openly that your task is to kaput and give the road to the other like you. So the logic of the Russian army is kind of cruel. So they send the soldiers at first to identify the Ukrainian positions on the map, and then they have those spots. Okay, then they send one more mid-wave for the actual battle, and those guys' destiny is just to die for nothing. And it's not just a single case. If you monitor my channel a lot, you already know that I share those kind of the videos with explanations about the Russian army men complaints. So the lightest version of their complaint is that Russian army command betrayed us and we are not obtaining the funds promised. As we know, in some of the regions of Russia, Russian local authorities of cities or governors of their oblasts, they pay extra initial funds to support soldiers' family, let's say, or the Russian soldiers, but then they go to the front lines, they receive almost no funds, so the Russian military command just tells them, okay, you'll be paid just a little later, we have a month's delay or something, but during that month the soldier is usually gone, so he and his family obtain nothing. It is a cruel reality for those Russian volunteers who try to go to the army to earn some funds, but instead they find just their death. So the Russian soldiers and their families start to complain about the delay in the payments, and the information also leaked to the Russian press. Sorry guys, it's in Russian. The Russian prosecution is aware about the complaints of the Russian soldiers and their relatives about the delay or on the delay of the payments. And it's not just a single video filmed. As I told you, there are tons of those videos. So somehow Russians publish those kind of the videos, even though they usually get detained. Guys, it seems like we all live in the 21st century, but for Russia, nothing changed since the last World War, for example. Their army is total outlaw organization, and the task of it is just to kaput the Russian soldiers for some sort of the ground gains, which is more profitable for Putin. That's it. And we remember how the Russian soldiers who obtained severe wounds were sent to fight back to the front lines. And this guy who was actually just reading the message from the phone, the message approved by everyone of his group, well, he is missing. Russians couldn't find him. His relatives are unaware of his location, and you see that he was definitely wounded, as well as many others nearby. So Russia really wants to censor everyone. And just for this reason, they want to block all of the mobile devices used by the Russian soldiers on the front lines, private mobile devices, which are also used to fight, to communicate, locate own members, friendly, not friendly, operate with the drones. But for the Russian managers, it's not important at all. They want to block this channel of communication directly towards Putin, because most of those Russians complain towards Putin. They do not understand that he doesn't really care. If they will completely cut this channel by not allowing the Russian soldiers to use mobile devices, there will be no complaints, so everything will be fine in the Russian army. The average Russian who watches TV will understand that Russia is winning, everything is fine. For this reason, Russia will also block YouTube in the coming months. And even today, for example, the biggest Russian MTS operator already blocked YouTube for mobile devices. You cannot access it. Crazy. Guys, just try to guess where those two Russian individuals serve. I don't need the number of brigade or something, just the type of the forces. So what do you think they do? Well, those are the Russian Marines. At the very beginning of the video, in their address, they say that they are Marines. And something tells me that it is definitely true. They even have and show some of the documents. I actually thought that Marines should look something like that. Every Marine is like a strong, enduring war machine who passed kind of hard selection, training, and equipped with a state-of-art modern equipment. But those are the Russian Marines. Okay, I understand. They show the medical papers that they're definitely sick and they both require surgery, so they call Putin, the Russian defense minister, to do something with that. Well, they can take your phone out for you not to film those kind of the videos. I'll translate to you the statement of one of the Russian generals. He's very concerned about the destiny of those soldiers. Well, actually not. He called those cowards for filming and publishing the videos with their complaints. And guys, it always was like that in the Russian army. They're not solving the problem of the Russian army, problem with supplies, with the poor training, and they're just in lack of the army man right now. They're just closing the eyes on everything. The problem will continue to exist, and they will not speak about it. They will not tell anyone. And they will blame those particular soldiers for the wrongdoing. And just imagine the face of the average Russian volunteer who goes to the Russian army, who really believes in that shit which is coming from the Russian TV propaganda. And yes, he receives some of the funds at first, but later he would have to spend those funds for his own equipment, because what the Russian government gives to him is just unsafe to wear. And later those soldiers, well, they do not receive salary or receive just part of the salary, and then they have to go and kaput themselves on the front lines for nothing, really for nothing. I think that average volunteer soldier has some sort of the cognitive dissonance in his head, and if he goes somehow to Ukrainian custody, if he stays alive, well, their attitude is better for him than inside the Russian army. And this problem for the Russian army appeared not just recently, it was there for a very long time, but now it intensified because Russia needs more soldiers, so they sent even wounded personnel, because Putin doesn't want to announce a new mobilization in Russia. It's a very unpopular step, but as I told you in my videos, it is just imminent if he wants to continue this war, and he wants to do it. Right, about the outcome of the Ukrainian strike on the Saki airfield in Crimea, it's also called Novofyodorovka airfield. It seems like Russia lost one more Sukhoi Su-30 out there. Well, not completely lost, but it's unable to fly. After the strike, it wasn't moved from the parking location. Usually Russia moves their airplane from one parking to another. They do it almost every 2 hours actually. But this plane stays at the same spot, and also the fire brigade was spotted near it right after the strike was conducted. It just stays there for many days, so probably it received some of the damages. Here the same aircraft was totally kaboomed, and there is the trace on the apron, and here also was the airplane, but Russia towed it out from the place. About the strike on the Russian Olenia airfield, where reportedly Russia lost Tupolev-22 M3 strategic bomber, well, today Yusuf, he is the official of the Ukrainian GUR intelligence service, he said that definitely those airplanes were damaged, even though we don't have any other sort of the confirmation of the airplanes being hurt in some certain way. The latest high-quality satellite images show that those airplanes are fine. But it seems like Ukrainian officials continue to say about it because they already said about it before. Guys, without the real evidence, I cannot prove that information. But it seems like nature decided to hurt some of the Russian airfield. Unfortunately, it wasn't a military airfield, just a local one. Let's see the video.
Закрывайте все, что можно. Вон он, смерть. Твою. Ужас.
Even nature is against the Russian military airfield, so it's time for Ukraine to obtain ATACMS permission to use, not there because it's civilian after all, but on military airfields. And those general aviation airplanes were just dancing on the apron. Well, this one flipped over its DA-42, Diamond 42 as well, and probably those two are D-40. Maybe they belong to the local flight school in Russia, and they were built even before the war had started. By the way, the Ukrainian border control also has DA-42 in its fleet. It's even equipped with a surveillance camera on the front. And this is the Russian Army command post somewhere in Kherson region, the occupied territory of Ukraine. And Ukraine decided to drop the JDAM out there, a little overkill, I think. Or maybe they thought that Russia needs a well out here. You can see it's very, very deep. Or maybe it was just a humanitarian mission for the Russian army, because we know that they struggle with the fresh water. So like Mr. Beast built many of the wells in Africa, Ukraine build the wells on the occupied territory. You can see it's kind of deep and there is some of the fresh water out there. Russians, enjoy. Alright, a large-scale fire in Yekaterinburg, Russia. The building belongs to Scientific and Production Association of Automation, named after academic Semikhyatov. This is one of the largest Russian enterprises in the field of development and manufacture of the control systems and electronic equipment for rockets and space technology, including the Russian ICBM's automation and control system. There were no any drone strikes reported, but the facility is really important for the Russian army. And this is Kerch-occupied Crimea. There was the strike on the Russian substation. Because of it, the 53,000 people in the Sparv Peninsula lost electricity. The water supply outage is also reported in eastern Crimea. Well, because water pumps are also working from electrical power. Because it's impossible now to send the Dnipro water to Crimea, Russians start to dig lots of the wells to provide the locals with the fresh water. But again, to pump out this water, you need quite powerful water pumps. Russia again launched the strike on Ukraine, and you know the part of the Shahid drones went to Belarus, so Belarus was forced to leave their fighter jets to get rid of the Shahid drones. Should we call it a friendly fire? Russia is working to upgrade their Iskander missiles. Now the range of the missile is around 550 kilometers, and they want to reach the distance of 1,000 kilometers. It's roughly 600 miles. With this new missile, potentially they may cover all of the Ukraine from their controlled territory. Well, actually, it's the violation of the treaty which was signed with the United States of America, but it seems like the United States of America left the treaty themselves. Then Donald Trump was the president of the United States. It happened, as far as I remember, in 2018, and Russia now also said that they'll produce more longer-range weaponry. The Hungarian government decided to ease the restrictions on the Russian and Belarus citizens who entered the country. This lift of the restrictions was negotiated directly between Viktor Orban and Vladimir Putin during Orban's visit to Moscow. Now, the citizens of Belarus and Russia might obtain the national card, which is given for 2 years and give the permission for them to work in Hungary. There are no any specific checks to obtain that card, at least on the European level. After that, the European Commission came out with a statement asking Hungary to explain how they want to lower the restrictions and how they basically want to check those citizens, because Hungary is basically in Schengen zone, so if some Russian spy somehow enters Hungary, he or she might go to the other country of Schengen without any border control. So the country of entrance should guarantee that everything is okay with that specific person, but in this particular case, something tells me that Russian spies could enter the Schengen area via Hungary. At least from what I see, the European Commission is concerned about it. Meanwhile, Hungary accused the European Union itself for blocking the Druzhba pipeline, which transferred the Russian oil towards Hungary and Slovakia. They say it's not really Ukraine. The idea and the permission was passed to Ukraine from Brussels. Well, maybe here Orban is right, but it is not bad. Guys, we all know that F-16s are coming very soon in the coming weeks, according to the latest information that was published yesterday. But the most important thing are not the fighter jets themselves, but what weaponry they will carry. Well, the Wall Street Journal published the article about those possible tools which those airplanes will carry. We're speaking about AGM-88 HARM missiles, which by the way are already in use by Ukrainian army. Those are the anti-radar system missiles. Air-to-the-ground missiles, quite effective, but maybe with F-16s they will be used in a better way. The extended range JDAMs, also in use by Ukrainian army, by the way, mostly dropped now from Sukhoi 25 and MiG-29 aircraft types. AIM-9X, the controlled short-range air-to-air missile to fight against the Russian fighter jets, but again it's the short-range missile. And the next one is AIM-120 ARAM, the control missile, also air-to-air missile, middle range. So, but what kind of the advanced weapons is actually written in this article? Because we don't see that advanced weaponry in the list. Nothing more is given in this article. Well, maybe, who knows, after all, Ukraine obtains the longer range missiles, but again, in this article, those were just 4 types of the missiles, and none of them is the long range, probably AGM-88 HARM, but that missile is used against the ground targets, the Russian raiders. But the main objective of those fighter jets should be to fight against with the Russian fighters bombers Sukhoi Su-34s, which drop the gliding bombs on Ukrainian positions, and that's how Russia propels forward. However, there is one modification of this IM-120 missile. It's IM-120D, and it's no longer a middle-range missile, it's the long-range missile with a distance up to 160 kilometers, so 100 miles. So if Ukraine obtains that, it's awesome, but if Ukraine obtains IM-120B, well, the distance of that missile is just 50 kilometers, 30 with something miles, so it's absolutely no-go to fight against the Russian fighter jets. Well, again, I may tell you that we may read lots of the articles from the mainstream media like Wall Street Journal or something like that, but the reality will be, I think, different. I think that the military officials in the United States already know what missiles will fit the best to the purpose. So I wouldn't be very skeptical about F-16s and not joyful as well at the same time. The first conclusion about the F-16 operation we'll see at the end of the year. About the front lines updates, well, there are heavy fights ongoing near Novi-Mikhailivka, the eastern front line. So far, Russia is unable to get more territorial gains out there. Again, the Russian convoys with their armored vehicles were demolished. However, Russia occupied Krasnohorivka fully. For the recent week, they advanced quite fast in this place. Well, maybe the Ukrainian command gave the order for the soldiers to leave the Krasnohorivka settlement. And if we check out this map, Russia will definitely go to the nearby settlements, and there will be the main battle in the coming months. Still not sure whether they have enough resources to go to Kurakhova, because the defense of Ukraine is kind of strong here. And also Russia moved today near Robotyne. They retook their defense lines, which Ukraine was able to liberate before. And they still have 3 of the attack vectors, and they don't have tremendous losses in this direction. Russia still uses their paratroop divisions in Robotyne direction, one of their most capable forces which are still left in the Russian army. My friends, and now please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me really a lot. And as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.